In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to paint a giraffe and her calf. Geodes was the #1 vote, but I felt more inspired by giraffe. So for colors, you need a light, a dark, and then a middle variation of green. And we're doing green for the background because they live in like the savannah or whatever. And this is like standard for every like color in a painting, I guess. For gradation purposes, we use like one light color or one light shade, one dark shade, and then one in between. And then since we're doing like such a big space at once, we're going to use one of the larger brushes. And you want to keep your brush strokes going the same way. And I'm doing vertical just because trees grow vertically. And that's kind of what we're symbolizing here. And I start with the lightest color. You always start with the lightest one when you're using the same brush because then you can go over it. It won't like be mixed too much. And so with the lighter green, I just kind of filled it in random spots. And I took the medium one and filled it in, leaving some spots for the darker green. Then I took the darker green, and I'm just letting the edges of the colors touch. I'm not mixing them yet. For mixing them, we're going to take a dry brush, and kind of like the fluffiest brush that you can. But you're going to take the dry brush and just kind of go over where the edges of the colors meet, like lightly, and blend them. And you want to make sure the canvas is like not overloaded with paint and semi-dry, otherwise the colors won't mix very well. Our colors for the giraffe are going to be tan and white for the skin and then brown and black for the spots. And you want to start with white because it's the easiest color to cover up if you do mess up. And a small paintbrush because we're just going to be making the outlines of the animals first. And a technique that I find that really works is to actually like use shapes just so you can get your proportions right before you actually start painting. Because if you start with like just one little area, it can get out of proportion really quick. And then your whole painting will be wonky. So we'll make circles and triangles now and then round them out later, as I'm rounding out her face right now. And it's better to like make the things too small rather than to make them too big on the first try because you can't really erase them, but you can paint over them. And once you're happy with your shapes, you're just going to go back in and like really define like all the smaller details, you know. Now I'm taking this ear and making it from a triangle to an actual ear shape. And this one was too small, so I did make it bigger here. And then for each of the colors, you're going to want your own brush. Otherwise, they're going to mix and all become one color eventually. And I'm right-handed, so I start all the way at the left side of the canvas so that my hand doesn't rub in the paint. And I can just work my way over to the right side. And as we said before, we're starting with the lightest color, white, and then tan. And this is just the skin of the giraffe, so we don't have to worry about the spots yet. And just like when we did the background, I'm laying on the paint and making them meet at the edges, and then wiping the brush off and then blending them when they're semi-dry, but not dry yet. If you let the paint dry, it won't blend, but if it's too wet, it'll blend too much, and it'll just become one color instead of two separate colors. And I did put a second coat on the skin just because it still had a green tint from the background. And now we're doing the spots. And I'm going to start with the black for the center of the spot and then add brown to the outside of the spot so that it blends better with the skin and it doesn't look like a cartoon. But I did later change the technique that I was using for making the spots because I thought it didn't look, I thought it did look kind of cartoonish, so I did change it later. And for the creases in the neck, I just kind of laid on the tan and then added more white. And I find the painting does turn out better if you work in like small sections at a time. Like right now I'm just doing everything, like the neck behind the ear. That way you don't have to worry about, like if you start doing the whole painting at once, you don't have to worry about sections drying before you get to finish them. And what I did here was I just went back in and I added the tan between the spots where the skin was and now the white. Then we want a thin brush for the mane because to make it look like actual hair. And hair goes every which way, so you don't just want to make it go straight, and it's uneven lengths too. And you're going to want to go from the bottom up so that the hair kind of fades out, you know? And what I did was I put a brown down and then I put black towards the bottom. And now we move on to the next section. Just like before, laying down the skin first and the spots next. And the horn was kind of awkward because I did use all 4 colors on it. And as we have been doing, we're going to lay down the colors themselves and leave them like semi-dry at the borders, kind of like a paint by number. You're just going to like put the colors where you want them, except then you're going to go back when your brush is wiped off and dry blend them where they meet. And we're doing the eyelash just the same way that we did the mane, starting at the eye and then going outwards so that the hair fades off at the end and looks like real hair. And then on top of the eye, we're going to want to blend the black in a little bit, just so it's not so sharp, like so sharp of a contrast. And usually when you are painting, you want to start with the items that are furthest away from the viewer and then work your way towards yourself, just because that adds dimension and layers to the painting. And this is why we're doing the mom first and her ear last, and then the baby. I did add black to this area, even though it's not a spot, just because we do need it to be a little bit darker to insinuate the calf's shadow on her face. And then for the spots, we start with black in the middle of the spot and then a dark brown around the outside. And the spots are smaller on the face than they are on her neck. I was looking at a picture for this painting because I don't know where Giraffe's spots naturally are. Then the spots were popping a little bit more than I wanted them to, making it look more like a cartoon. So what I did was I took the tan that we use for the skin and I put it between the spots, like around their edges, and I found that it made them a lot more like dull. And then the ears do have hair, so what you're gonna want to do for the edges is like kind of what we did for the eyelashes, where you just make it look fuzzy, you know? Here I added the fuzziness to the ear. Now I'm just going back and adding random white highlights wherever I feel like they need to go. And now for the baby, you're going to want 4 new clean brushes just because they probably did get a little mixed from the mother. And then for the baby, we are going to start with the ears because that is the part that's furthest from the viewers. And we'll be ending with its nose because it's the closest. And while we used the tan and the white for the skin and the black and the brown for the spots, I found that we did use all 4 colors for the ears and their horns. And just as I have been, I'm still using the dry blending technique where you just paint the colors to their edges and then wipe the brush off and then blend them, like just where they meet.
Why?
And now I add the fuzzy part to the ears, and because, well, that's just what you do.
Why?
Because...
I don't know how to do ears.
Oh, well, if you watch this video, you'll probably learn how. And for the neck, I guess we just kind of started out by laying it out with a white, just to sort of prime it against the green background so it didn't have the green tint behind it. And then while I was waiting for that to dry, I went back and added the white highlights to the baby's face. And now I'm doing black for the mane and dark brown on the very bottom. And the baby's mane is a lot shorter than the mom's. And I took the dark brown and I just blended it with the mane where it meets the neck. And then for the baby spots, we're going to start with the dark brown and make the spots closest to the mane. And then since the white is still semi-wet, we're going to like start towards the mane and go towards the outside of the neck. And the spots will naturally get lighter as you make them because it's mixing with the white. And it ends up adding like a lot of shadow to the neck. And there we have it.